Thank you, everyone, and welcome all of you. Congratulations on the first 2 episodes. I've seen the whole series. It's great. This, Robert and Mark, I mean, this is a stage and we're here to discuss the full Monty. Can I confirm you'll be keeping your clothes on?
Aye.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And for the whole series?
1,000%.
Yep. Okay,
No one wants to see that.
One or two.
I'll take it.
I know you all had the premiere up in Sheffield last night. What sort of reception did you get there, both last night and over the course of filming? And what does the full Monty mean for Sheffield as far as you guys are concerned?
I think that Sheffield have really embraced the film. It's become part of you know. I think they're proud of the film and how it portrays their city, and it's they were very welcoming. They were happy to have us back, and it was.
Lee, given that Simon and Alice are absent in solidarity with the WGA strike, maybe you could talk us through a little bit about how the series came about and why Disney wanted in on it.
So the show began in development with FX over in the US, and it was being developed with Simon and with Alice. And I think, as Liam had said earlier, it was sort of one of the first sort of scripts he'd read. And it was just brilliant, and it had all the humour and the warmth and the humanity that you remembered from the film, actually. And there's a huge responsibility if you're going to bring a show from a film sort of 25 years later, because it's so loved and it was such an important movie, and so you have to make sure that if you're going to bring it back, it's worth it and it's good. And the writing was absolutely amazing. The chance to bring everyone back together. I don't quite know how we managed to make that work with schedules, because everyone is obviously very busy. And so you just don't pass up that opportunity. And I think also, and I'm sort of speaking for Simon a little bit here, but it was sort of the timing felt right. I think he'd sort of for many years, he'd been asked about a sequel and what would the next movie be and everything, and he said that he never quite found that moment to sort of the reason to bring it back. And it just, things are really tough at the moment for a lot of people, and I think there's people are struggling, and I think him and Alice just felt that this was a time to represent many of the people in the country, and actually all over the world. Yes, we've got Sheffield, but there's a Sheffield in every, country around the world, which was once a sort of great industrial city and has never really recovered from that. And people within those towns and those cities, although they're very proud, they struggle on, And I think what the full Monty did and what it continues to do is talks about difficult things in life, talks about the politics, but it does it through the humour and the warmth, and it does it through character, actually. And I think that's a much easier way to go to sometimes some very difficult places, because what Simon and Alice do with the writing is they reassure you with that writing. They'll take you to some really hard, difficult places, just like they did in the film. I think it's really funny that when people talk about film, they go, "Oh, that film was hilarious." It was. It's a hilarious movie. But go back and watch it. It deals with some really, really difficult stuff at that time in a very sort of groundbreaking way, actually. So I think the chance to do that again,
it would be understandable if you were a bit reticent about coming back to something after that amount of time, something that's that beloved. Did you have reservations, and what kind of got the three of you over the line for it?
It's really rare if you do a piece of work that you really care about and that you really loved and has gone down very well. Actually, it was intriguing that it was going to come back, and knowing that Simon's the writer that he is. Before I even read the scripts, I had a feeling that he would only be thinking about this if he felt that the fact that we've got 8 hours to explore the lives of these characters rather than just 90 minutes is a real bonus. I think it's a real privilege to have got older and still be doing this job, and to have got older and be able to reconnect with colleagues that I really cared about when I was working with them originally, and with Simon, who's amazing. That's a privilege in a lifetime and in this business. So to read the scripts and see that they were that fantastic, that was just like the cherry on the cake. So there was no being got over a line, and there was no kind of, yeah, maybe this is a good idea. It was just like, this is a very fortunate moment, and I'm very grateful.
Totally. The opportunity to share scenes with these two brilliant people, just there was no way I was going to say no. No way.
I agree. I do agree, but I also have to say that there is a certain amount of kind of hesitation about it, because you don't want to do anything that's in any way going to sort of downgrade the memory of the film. So that's, at first you're like, you sure about this? So it was kind of through conversations with Simon before, and then eventually, looking at the scripts and say, well, actually, I can see what this is. That he's taken it on now. It's 25 years later. That was then. This is now. We're not trying to remake the film Monty. We're not trying to do that. It's an entirely different thing. So once reading it, all these kind of reservations were soon put to bed.
And did playing Begbie, that your sort of other iconic character from the similar kind of era, and coming back to him and doing it very successfully in T2, did that kind of reassure you that you could go back?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I've been fortunate enough to be through a kind of similar kind of experience doing the second Trainspotting film. Yeah, I mean, I knew that this is probably going to be all right, because it was a great experience, obviously, doing T2 and getting back together again with the three lads. The prospect, as Mark says, of working again with Mark and all the rest of the gang, I mean, nirvana.
And to Letha, I mean, apologies to everyone else on the panel, but I'm guessing you were born around the time the film came out, maybe a bit after?
Yeah, I was, yeah. I think I was born the year it came out.
All right, don't go on about it.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
How aware were you of the film's significance and impact and popularity?
I feel like the name, like you hear the name, The Full Monty, and you're like, oh yeah, that, like, just those 3 words, you're like, oh yeah, like I've heard of that, I know about that. Yeah. And then obviously when I was auditioning, I rewatched the film, and I watched it with my grandparents and my sister, and it was really interesting, like watching it with them and then watching them watching it and their like memory of like when it came about and stuff. So yeah, that's cool.
And how was that first table read? It must have been pretty bonkers to get everyone, you to be the newcomer, and then everyone else back together again in the room for, I'm guessing, the first time in years.
Yeah, no, it was pretty nerve-wracking. I was kind of equal parts nervous and excited. And I just remember walking into the room and being like, oh, like, those are the people off the telly. But then I looked around and everyone was like really warm and really smiley, and it kind of felt like we were just sort of embraced into the family. So it was great. And I wasn't the only newcomer. There are some other like new young Monties. So it was nice. It was nice. And it was nice to have like, people that you can look to and ask for advice and just have there. It was good. Yeah.
I think all of us involved were a little bit giddy on that day. It's like, with this job, you do a lot of read-throughs, and it's a process. You get everyone together, you read the scripts, and it's about reading the scripts, and you listen to the scripts, and then you have loads of notes. And actually, when everyone started walking in the room, you were like, oh my God, they're really here. And it was really exciting,
An interesting thing is that on the first day of filming, I think it was particularly in the Big Baps cafe. I mean, they're all pals and stuff like that. It's Mark and it's Paul and all of that. But I did sit there going, man, there's Dave. His horse. It was an amazing moment. I actually think, my God, this is actually happening.
Mark, had you wondered, because that final scene of that film is so kind of triumphant and uplifting, did you sort of wonder what had become of Dave and the gang in the intervening years?
Well, yeah, you do wonder. I don't. I mean, immediately after their night of removing all their clothing, their lives haven't changed in any significant way. They've done a thing, and they've kind of maybe plucked up the courage to do this thing. But materially, nothing has changed in their lives. They're still unemployed. They're still looking for ways to survive. And you know, it's we find out through the series what has, you know, befallen various people. But you know, you sort of also when you've got the new guys, the younger guys, they've, you know, you hope that they've got a better chance, a better life than the old crinklies have. You know, that's the and is it you know, you just sort of you wish a better world for them than for their predecessors.
And Leslie, Lee alluded to the fact, quite rightly, that the film was incredibly progressive in some of the issues it raised, but it was still undeniably, kind of unavoidably, a very male perspective. What's different for you coming back to this project with, you know, a Gene you can really sort of sink your teeth into, if you like? Because I mean, you won a BAFTA for the film, so something you did it right.
Well, I just think that obviously, you know, in the 90 minutes of the film, we were being made redundant and there not being much employment, and you know, so it was absolutely about them and about that community. I suppose what's great about this is that you get, you know, the character who has said, working in a shop, when I've got this brain, I'm going to go to teacher training college. Oh, I'm not just going to be a great teacher, I'm going to be a great deputy head. I'm not just going to be a great deputy head, I'm going to run a school. And it's a woman. Simon and Alice gave that to a female character who was actually kind of on the outer edges in the film. But I think what's also great, having given that to Jean, is that you're now seeing the opposite side of the relationship with Dave and Jean, which is that she was his cheerleader, his supporter, his validator, and over the past 25 years, that's exactly what he's given her. But at their centre is a child that didn't live, and they've not been able to talk about that. So there is a big problem in their relationship. And as we meet them here, the tectonic plates are moving in a way which suggests that it's got to a point of urgency. And if they don't talk about it, then things will go really badly wrong. And I think because we loved them in the film and they were really an emotional heartbeat, is that actually you really want them to be able to sort that out. So that was a really great thing to be able to engage with over these 8 hours, to dig into this relationship.
I think Jean as well represents a lot of women from that generation. You know, if you go all the way, the collapse of the kind of sort of British industry and the sort of, you know, a lot of men going on strike and a lot of men losing their jobs from the sort of mid-80s through to the 90s, it meant that there was a flip. A lot of women in the household, they became the breadwinners. You know, in many ways it empowered women actually. You know, and there was a gaining in confidence and a kind of finding their voice in some way as well. And I think
wonderful dissolve at the start from the Working Men's Club as was to how it is. Did you even know that was still there when you sort of going location scouting and stuff? Did you know what kind of condition it was in? And
no, that's what we call a gift. Where I was keen to go and take a look at a lot of the, as a fan of the film, go and take a look at a lot of the locations from the film and see if we could weave them in. And the start of that first episode was quite. There are a handful of ways Simon and I talked about how to approach the opening of the first episode. And when I went on the recce and saw that, and it's despite the derelict appearances once, and the guy said, "Oh, my cousin owns that. Don't be fooled by appearances. They're all millionaires inside, but they just can't be asked to repair it." So anyway, so they're affluent mattress sellers, and anyway, it's the original paint. So the sort of faded red on the building is what the colour they painted it for the film, and that's just faded. That's 25 years of fading. Plants growing out, and it was it kind of in a visual said exactly what we were trying to do with the story. So it was a gift. Like I say, it was really good.
What I mean, there's obvious continuity between the film and the series in terms of stories and characters. But were you taking visual cues from the film as well? Were you looking at the film or trying to kind of draw a clear kind of line between the two in terms of how you wanted it to look?
So definitely wanted to evolve it a bit. I think, kind of make it feel contemporary. I think the main thing was tone, really. Tone and everyone, like Lee said, I certainly remember it as a funny film, and kind of on repeat viewing, the sort of more serious stuff comes through. And I think that was very much just what I was focused on, of bringing the same tone into the film. So visually evolving it to some extent, but keeping that tone. And I sort of always, when we were in prep, I was saying that we basically had the best pilot episode ever for any of those nervous. What is the style of humour? How are we going to sort of see the world? And it's kind of, I was very much like, well, look, we've got a very, very successful multi-award winning film as our blueprint, and it's kind of evolving that and kind of expanding that into our 8-hour series.
No pressure.
As far as you're concerned, is this the end of the road, or is there a lot more story to tell with these characters for anyone who wants to take it?
You never say never, That's what I would say. I mean, I love in this world. I come for that world. So, I'd welcome it, for sure.
Any dissenters?
No.
I think there's lots to say about where they go. What do you think, Lee?
I mean, look, I think it. I mean, so you all need to get your Disney Plus subscription, and you'll need to be watching it. I mean, look, it isn't just about bringing something back for the sake of bringing it back. That's why it took 25 years between the film and the series. It's got to be about the scripts being right. It's also got to be about Simon feeling he's ready to tell the next chapter. And it's also about getting these guys together, because their schedules are insane. So there's a lot of sort of things that have to play out. But, I mean, look, it's brilliant. We're so proud of it. We are so proud of it. It's a brilliant show. Brilliant show.
Well, I mean, the film came out we shot it in 96, came out in 97. Coincidentally, at a point where New Labour came in after 18 years of Tories running the country. And we're now in a place where you kind of go. We've sort of come full circle, and I think there's a kind of need for some form of change, and they've got to go. But I just think, look, you're 25 years on, and a government that had an 80-seat majority, think of the wonderful things that you could do for a country, and you choose not to. Don't want to be political at all. There was none, as far as I'm aware.
The dog.
Yeah, the dog.
Yeah.
No, there's not. I mean, it's a beautifully written script, so you don't really mess with it. So a lot of the times in a lot of stuff you can get a chance to do that and you improvise certain things, but with this you don't touch it.
Did you have sort of input into suggestions for the characters and lines and stuff that you did drop in, or really not at all? Just
No, not
Read it
really.
straight
Not
up.
really. There was, there's little bits and bobs, the odd word here and there, the odd kind of phrase here and there. Actually, the wee bit in the corridor, you know what I mean, when in the hospital that you saw there, when the guy goes over, how you doing, not so bad. And that was from the original film,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I dropped that in there,
Yeah.
so that's my bit.
But did you Gaz's kind of vanity?
Oh yeah.
I think that's wonderful. Doing his nails or his face mask, and
I did.
I think that's
yeah,
great.
Okay, I did. I'm guilty. I just thought, so this guy's probably clinging on to the last couple of years of his, looks. So he's like, I think that's what he is. That's Gaz is, quite a kind of vain kind of guy, vain character. So I thought, let's just stretch that out a bit.
And Simon did say to me and Dominic and Natalie, he was like, if there's anything that feels like it's not how a young person would say it, you can switch it around or you can do what you want with it. But to be honest, there wasn't many times that we had to do that. Apart from with the rap, we did have to get a rap kind of coach in and get like the kind of like dialect and wording and how the sentences are put together. I think that was like, we kind of all worked on that together. Yeah.
And actually, I wonder, while we're on this, what kind of difference did Alice make? Because obviously Simon wrote the film, so you're very familiar with his style of writing. But what did Alice bring to the table?
You know, I thought when I was reading the scripts when they came through, it was in the first few was just Simon, wasn't it? Simon. And then in the next script came in and it said Simon and Alice Snutter, and I was like, what? So I was a bit kind of like wary. I didn't notice any difference. It was kind of seamless, you know. I mean, it was beautifully done. So Alice deserves all the credit just as much as Simon, I think.
I think Simon said recently they kind of balance each other out a little bit, and that, you know, Alice is very political, and she kind of will sort of push that stuff, and he'll kind of sort of pull it back in a little bit, and then when he goes a little bit crazy with the hijinks, she's like, no, pull that back. So they seem to work very, very well together.
Team.
Well, I think, you've hit the nail on the head absolutely about the Full Monty, is that it doesn't pull any punches in terms of the world that it's representing and the challenges that a lot of those characters are having to deal with on a day-to-day basis. But what's fantastic about it is that it, and I think that this is, to follow up on what Lee said, is that the working classes or communities of the working classes exist in every single country in the world, and that's one of the reasons why I think the film did what it did, is because it's not a dirge, and it's not a criticism, it's not endless misery, it's not people who are pulled down, embittered and sour because they don't have and they can't get and they haven't got and they're not looked after. It's about communities who, in spite of that, engage with their wit, their warmth, their humour, their camaraderie, their sense of community, giving a damn about their neighbours. I think that the Full Monty, the Full Monty's representation of that group of people is really validating and is underrepresented in the arts generally. Has been recently. I mean, we've got a very fine tradition of kitchen sink drama and literary ambition, and I often think of shows like Boys from the Black Stuff in the 80s that Alan Bleasdale was writing. We have this tradition of being able to represent a large part of the UK, arguably the best of the UK. And I think that's why the Full Monty is up there, because it writes about the best of that community. It doesn't fetishize its lack. It celebrates its best.
I would say quite a few of us are from kind of working class backgrounds and went to drama school with the aid of a grant that paid your, it would pay your tuition fees and a little bit to help you live on. You had to scrape money together in order to sort of survive. But your training as an actor didn't cost you anything. That's gone now. So there will be a working class gap in terms of, who can afford to go to drama school. It's I think it's tragic, and it means that you've got people from a different background playing working class characters, and where does that fit in? It's strange, but I just think it's a shame that the people are missing opportunities to get training purely because of the financial the cost of it.
And I think that there's something about the attitude, which I think, you talk about some of there's a version of this series and there's a version of the film that has no laughs. And it's grim up north and it's really tough and everyone's really struggling. And that doesn't mean it's not true, but this is also true, is that people do get up every day and they do struggle on and they do struggle to pay their bills and they do struggle to find food for their kids and all of those things. But with every opportunity where there is to laugh, people laugh. People find that joy. Whether you go to a pub in Soho that's full of loaded people, or whether you go to a pub in one of the poorest parts of the country, you will hear the laughter as louder in that pub as you will as the pub where everyone's got money. Because that's just the spirit, that's that human spirit that kind of gets us through it all. And I think what this show does and what the film did is it allows you into that world, and it wants you to feel bad for those people, and it wants you to take those people's lives and their struggle seriously. But it doesn't have to be really depressing, because they don't get up every morning, these people, and go, God, life's going to be really shit today. You look for the laughter and you look for the joy, and that's what this show does, I think.
And like when I was studying the film, and I was surprised at how much colour there was, to sort of Lee's point about not wallowing, and there's a very grim up north stereotype, and so having colour in the world was really important, and that's what the film did brilliantly, and that was super important for me in the series of not painting a grim picture of Sheffield, because it isn't. It's a really great place, and that was super important to get that into the series as well.
I think you're right. It was unusual for that time to see a gay couple treated with kind of respect and a kind of it not being a big deal for the yes, there is progression with Lomper and Dennis,
and also with the younger generation with Destiny's storyline, and it's really beautiful because it's part of her story, but it isn't her story, and her struggles actually have nothing to do with the way that she goes on to explore her sexuality throughout the series, which I think is a beautiful representation of hopefully where we are starting to go and where hopefully we will go more and more.
Thank you so much. Well, the film obviously means a lot to a lot of people here, and I'm sure the series will come to it as well. Thank you all for your questions, and thanks so much to the panel.